Okay, so in this tutorial we're going to be going over how to create objects in our scene. So anytime we want to create an object in our scene, we're going to have to come over to this Create tab here. To start with, I want to create a 3D object, so I'm going to click on the geometry icon. If I wanted 2D objects, I'd click on the shape icon. If I wanted a light, I'd click on the light, and a camera, I'd click on the camera, etc. So now I've clicked on the geometry tab here. I want to make sure that this drop down list is on standard primitives. In this drop down list we have the option to select other types of 3D objects, such as extended primitives, which are like primitives but more complex shapes, compound objects, which are combining two objects together, particle systems, and other things. So the one we want is the standard primitives. So I have to make sure this drop down box is in standard primitives. I click on the 3D object that I want, which in this case is a box. So I've clicked on the box. In any of the viewports, I can left click and drag. Now dragging changes the size of the box dynamically like this. So I can have a box any size I like. So I want to drag out a box like this, and then when I let go, it will transition to the second parameter, which is the box's height. So by moving the mouse, I can change the box's height. So I want a box around this height, and to set it at that height, I would left click again, and there we go. We've created our first 3D object, a 3D box. So I'm using Alt and middle mouse button to orbit around our 3D box so we can see it there. Now if I wanted to change the height of this box, I would come over to this box over here where it says parameters. Under this parameters setting, I can grab these little arrows next to these boxes, or I can enter directly the numerical value that I want. Again, so I can grab these here and scroll with the mouse like that to change the size, or I can enter a numerical value. The same with the width and the height. I can also change these things called length segments, width segments, and height segments. You can see if I hit F4 to show edges, we only have these 4 edges that make up each of the faces of the cube. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I put in length segments, you can see how it splits it in half and adds extra edges in. If I add width segments, it adds them in this direction, and height segments, it adds them in this direction. So I have a cube with more segments. I can always add more than 2 or 3, or less, like that. Okay, so now if I were just to click and drag anywhere again, I would create another cube, and I would keep creating cubes until I select a different tool. So you have to deselect this tool. You can see how it's highlighted like this by selecting another tool. I'm going to use this select object tool up here in our toolbar. So now this select object tool means I can select other objects. So I've selected this object, but this parameter tool has disappeared. So if I wanted to adjust the parameters again, I would have to come to our command panel. I'd have to click on the modify tab in the command panel, and here, down here, I would have the parameters available to me again. So here I can adjust its length, its width, and its height, and all of the segments, etc. So sometimes an object would require more parameters. For example, this cone. If I were to drag once, I would set the size of the base. If I were to let go, I would set the height, like with the cube. But if I was to left click, it would give me this last parameter, which sets the height, the radius of the top of the cone, like this. So I would just left click again to set that parameter, and we're all done with making our cone. Another way to create objects is using this keyboard entry parameter here, which is just above the parameters when you click on one of these objects. So you have to click on the plus button to get the keyboard entry. Using keyboard entry, I can be more accurate about the length and size. I can get an object the exact size that I want. You can see how it's set in centimeters here. I'm going to put 1000 centimeters for each of these parameters and hit the create button. You can see how it is created a cube exactly at our origin, which is 0, 0, 0, with a length of 1000 centimeters in each of its lengths. I can again still change all of the parameters down here in the parameters tab.